Well, good morning, guys. It's 10:01, and so I'll get started with you guys. I'm recording this so that if we have anybody jump in late, they'll be able to join us as well. I want to remind you of what's going on with your homework, first of all. And so let me bring you to this to start off with. So first of all, for today, for Monday, May 11th, make sure that you fill out your attendance today so that your attendance is taken care of. And remember that you have two assignments from last week. Your Chapter 27 text assignment is due for today, as is also this ed puzzle that you guys were watching in class. And so you've got the link still located right here. And I'll put all of these things into your updates as well as being on this Google document. So let me, first of all, copy and paste this right here. Like you've seen throughout our entire experience, when you need to find links that are going on with your assignments, just go back to our daily assignments that are listed right here, and you'll find links going on with them. And with your Chapter 27 text questions, all you need to do is just submit them as we've done previously. So you'll find inside your Schoology folder a link for your text questions right here. So please make sure you get those done today so that I can give you the grade for the work that you've done for the 1960s. Now, the content that you just got finished covering is a period where we have a lot of change taking place. And when we take a look at what was going on with Chapter 27, you learned about protest movements that were happening with the kids, with the free speech movement, with the anti-war movement. You learned about the rise of feminism and women pursuing equal rights inside the country, even pursuing an equal rights amendment that recently just had another state, Virginia, vote to approve the Equal Rights Amendment, but it was long after the deadline for the Equal Rights Amendment to earn ratification. And in particular, what the Equal Rights Amendment shows you is that there was a backlash that took place where for many conservatives, they were concerned that our country was changing too much, that we were doing too much to upset the status quo. So the Equal Rights Amendment never actually became part of our Constitution, and it's still debated nowadays. In the last section, you learned about Mexican Americans and protest movements that were going on to try to protect their rights inside the United States. And one of the things we want to highlight for you is then the legacies that we see going on during this time period, because when you move into Chapter 28, you're going to be reading Chapter 28, Lesson 1 today. You're going to be reading that for Wednesday. And you've also got this ed puzzle about Richard Nixon that I'd like you to watch for Wednesday. We're going to find the rise of what is going to be called the silent majority. And this is what Richard Nixon refers to as good Americans who are not protesting, who are not causing trouble, who are conservative in nature, hold on to traditional American values. And a lot of them, the commentary for the silent majority was very much a rejection of the protests that we saw that were pushing for change during this time period. What that leaves us then is a society that very much is polarized, that is divided, that is split, where we do have groups of people who would like to make change. And there are many people who have become counter-revolutionaries who very much are very interested in maintaining the status quo, holding on to our old values. And you could still see them emerging nowadays. And oftentimes their clashes will cause contention. So one of the things that you guys learned about is you learned about what was called militarism during this time period. And one of the groups that you learned about was the Black Panthers. And when they talk about militant protests, there was some violence, there was some criminality that took place. But with the Black Panthers, they were more militant with their tactics. And what that means is in California, you would have Black Panthers who would dress in ways that would be seen as very much dangerous by white people as far as like how militant the garb is that they're wearing. But what the Black Panthers would do is tactics wise, sometimes they would follow police officers. And when they would pull over African Americans, they would stand off to the side and shout out to them legal advice when the police were trying to harass them by pulling them over in a racially profiling sort of way. In order to demonstrate their rights in the 1960s, they showed up in California carrying weapons like this to demonstrate that they had the Second Amendment and that they were free to go into the Capitol with those weapons. And it got to the point in the 1960s where we actually created the Mumford Act then as a result in California, Mulford Act, that actually made it illegal to openly carry guns because of what the Black Panthers were doing here. Now, for many African Americans, they are not blind to the fact that over the past few weeks, we have seen militant protests like this, where for white people, if they show up at the Capitol screaming at police officers like this, or actually showing up with weapons inside the Capitols, they will claim that this is their Second Amendment right. Well, we also have a story right now of an African American man who was shot by two white people in the South who thought that he looked like a criminal. So when we think about what's going on with the civil rights movement during the time period, there is this feeling of de facto discrimination that's still going on years after the official civil rights movement came to an end. A feeling that if you were white in America, that there was a different set of rules that were going on than if you were of other nationality or other ethnicities. We're also going to see this with women nowadays. Women nowadays are very much still concerned about whether or not there's equality of opportunity and being able to move inside the business world. But after the 1960s, we will find that there's also a counter movement of people who are concerned that feminists are going too far. And in the end of chapter 27, you guys read about the movement going on with Cesar Chavez, trying to mobilize and represent Mexican Americans who are working inside the United States, some here with legal documentation, some here who did not have the documentation to be in the United States. But one of the dilemmas that we have is for President Trump, his argument has been that illegal immigration, in his words, is bad. So he's building a wall between Mexico and the United States. But one of the secrets that we have that everybody knows about inside of our country is that we employ people inside the United States to do jobs that many of us do not want to do because of the fact that they are here without documentation. And so if you are watching what's going on with the coronavirus, we have some people working jobs who are doing the toughest jobs. And if you remember The Jungle, the book that we talked about back during the early 1900s, talking about how bad slaughterhouses were, if we take a look at what's going on in our state, this is the map for coronavirus. And if you take a look on this map, you will find that Little Stearns County up here by St. Cloud is having one of the largest spikes of coronavirus anywhere inside the United States. The reason why this is taking place is they have two meat packing plants inside of their area. And inside those meat packing plants, a lot of times this is the place where immigrants will go to work in jobs that are low skill, but oftentimes they're not getting the protections that they need in order to do these jobs. And so we're in a society where simultaneously we have people who want to look down on immigrants, but at the same time, they are totally dependent on these immigrants to maintain our food supply and our food chain in order for us to be able to get the meat and the fruit and the vegetables that we're depending on to live inside of our society. It's those dilemmas, those sorts of debates that we start in the 1960s that we're still having nowadays. And that's something that we get to leave off with you because at this point of our course, as we move into the 1970s, we are moving into the time period when your grandparents were alive and they were about your age. This was the time period when these were the battles that they saw going on, and those battles are still going on nowadays. How should we treat different groups of people inside the United States, male and female, white and other nationalities, given the fact that in our history, we have had discrimination taking place against groups of people, and while we fixed some of it, in the 1970s, there are some people who are arguing that we've gone far enough to make things better, while others are saying we still have more left to do. It's in that era that Richard Nixon becomes president. And Richard Nixon is going to be a president who promises to bring back law and order. So he is going to argue that protesters are out of line, that we need to be more respectful, more patriotic. And if that sounds like conservatives in our world nowadays, that's where a lot of that messaging came from. We're going to get into battles between hawks and doves, protesters versus conservative individuals of the silent majority. And for Richard Nixon, when he becomes president, he's going to promise that he can end the Vietnam War with a secret plan that he calls Vietnamization. And as you guys have seen from your Vietnam work, his Vietnamization will actually make the Vietnam War bigger. And it's actually going to make the differences between liberals and conservatives even worse because there are going to be people who feel like there's a credibility gap, that Richard Nixon can't be trusted. He's also going to be involved in the Watergate scandal, where he desperately wants to get reelected in 1972 to the point where he does illegal things with his executive branch to try to get reelected. And when he gets caught, he will become our first president ever to quit being president midway through his term. He is going to step down. His vice president will get involved in another scandal that will force him to step down. And we're going to end up with Gerald Ford, our first unelected president ever in US history. So I've got two things for you to work on for today. Those two things, like I highlighted, number one, I'm going to want you to get to work with Chapter 28, Lesson 1, and you can find that inside your Schoology materials right here. So I'd like you to get that text assignment done, and that text assignment is referring to the Richard Nixon presidency. I will also want you to watch the Ed puzzle that I've got linked right here, and so with this link, I will... Give me just 1 second. I'll post that link right over here in the margin. I'd like you to have this watched by Wednesday as well. So the Ed puzzle and Chapter 28, Lesson 1. Tomorrow, your social studies teachers are all having a meeting to discuss what we're doing with the rest of the school year. What are we doing with grading? What are we doing with what was traditionally final exam week and that sort of stuff? And so I'm going to need to miss this time with you tomorrow. We'll be back together on Wednesday. When we get back together on Wednesday, that will be the day that we then cover the Watergate scandal. And we'll take a look at the scandal that forced Richard Nixon to step down from the presidency in 1974, creating an even bigger credibility gap, an even bigger divide between Republicans and Democrats. For you guys then today, remember the two things I'm collecting from you. First of all, that Ed puzzle. So you've got this Ed puzzle from last week. And also your Chapter 27 text assignment should be submitted. And keep in mind, what we're doing with our grading at this point is we are looking at grading from the perspective that we want you to pass this class by the end of this school year. If you're in danger of not passing, this is a great time to turn in missing work. And for me, I just finished up grading the last set of essays that I'll be grading for my AP kids. My AP US History students have their AP test on Friday. This whole weekend, I've been grading essays to give them feedback. I'm now done with that. So if you've turned in work and you have got late stuff that's been waiting to be graded, I'll be doing that today and tomorrow. So you're about to see your grade get better if there's stuff that's missing that you have turned in. If you've already sent me an email to tell me what to look for, great. If you want to send me a reminder to make sure I find your stuff, I won't be insulted by that. I'm trying to kind of keep everything organized. And it's kind of chaotic doing e-learning. So forgive me if I'm missing something of yours that needs to be put in the grade book. Definitely let me know about that. Finally, if you're confused about anything that you're missing, if there's any stuff that you're not certain what to do, you don't know what that thing is, whatever, you should reach out to me and I can set up a Google Meet with you individually to talk through your situation, or just send me an email if you need feedback. We don't want you confused during this time period, and we would like to see you successfully finish this course with a credit when we get done, hopefully with the best grade possible, because this work should hopefully just be you taking your time, doing your work, getting it done, getting full credit. We would like to see your grade actually getting better as a result of this process. And if you're feeling not very confident about that happening, we should be working together. So at this point, I'm assuming you know what you're doing. You've got two assignments that are due for today from last week. You've got the two assignments, the Ed puzzle and Chapter 28, Lesson 1, that should be done for Wednesday. If you feel confident that you're good, you can feel free to drop off the video now, but make sure you mark your attendance so your attendance looks good. And if you've got any questions, hang on the line, let me know, or else send me a message so I can help you out. Have a great day, guys.